I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Standing up, or
Thank you all.
you gotta sit down again, Jack.
The first item on the agenda tonight will be the approval of the consent agenda. That includes the financials that were in your packet, the Converge technology bids for the intermediate school cameras, paging system, and controlled access acceptance. That totaled $272,418.07. The intermediate school playground proposal, as well as the proposals and movement of the other playground equipment totaling $402,794. That would be equipment moving here from the Butterfield campus to Spainhauer, and reconditioning and replacing that equipment, bringing it up to look new and to code. Replacement of a playground set out here that's more age appropriate for the size of children that will be out here, and then playground equipment that will be at the new intermediate school. And as I said, that totaled $402,794.09. Teachers eligible for tenure, 2025 E-rate contract, which is what we buy our servers and equipment maintenance on. Gives us a 80% and 90% discount rate on some of the equipment, depending on what category we're purchasing it from. Also, it's $117,000, $345. And then dedication plaques that would be at the new intermediate school, and then also here at the Tom Butterfield central office side, and then also on the school side. Therapy log RN service contract, and that will be all.
Gotta be a lot.
I move we accept.
Second.
It has been moved and accepted.
I'll second. I think you're on the wrong page.
It's been moved by Mr. Shepherd and seconded by Ms. Staley. Mrs. Staley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Please say aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Some really good diagrams and pictures of the school equipment, so once that gets up and out here, I'm sure everybody will be great to see it. Moving along to the financials themselves. December bills, which totaled $2,954,303.68, and the other financial reports, which are in our packet. That also includes our payment to our construction company on the new construction for a little over $1 million.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any other questions or discrepancies with the billing? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstaining? Next, moving down to approve the minutes from our December 10th meeting. It seems like that was so long ago.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Smith and seconded by Mr. Shepherd. Are there any questions or revisions anyone saw to the December 10th minutes? All those in favor then, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstaining? Next, we're looking to adopt the agenda for the remainder of the meeting with no additions or corrections.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second. Aren't you good?
Been moved by Mr. Lenz and seconded by Mr. Smith.
Okay.
All those in favor of the agenda as printed and published?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining or recusing? Next, public comments. We have a large audience here this evening. Well, one of the two people in the audience will be speaking later, so I'm going to move past public comments as I believe we have none. Going down to reports then. We will allow Ms. Grace to move up to the podium for her presentation on climate and culture through our student population and also our community.
Okay, thank you for having me tonight. I feel weird speaking to an audience that isn't
here, so anyway. So we'll go through my presentation, but what is coming down the table now is enrollment numbers as of January, just so you can have an idea where we're at when we're talking climate and culture, who took the survey, who participated. This kind of gives you an idea.
I'm not hearing you, I'm sorry.
The paper coming down the
There we
table has enrollment numbers as of January. I just updated those just to give you a full picture of what our student population looks like before we dive into the climate and culture survey. So the first page that you see is strictly by building and by grade level, the numbers. And then just to kind of give you an idea where we've been through the year, the second sheet that's in color looks at our enrollment numbers from September, November, and January, and it's color coded by grade. I saw a slight drop in enrollment, and you guys can see it on the sheet, from September to January. So just so you can see where we're at, keep that in mind. Okay, jumping into my presentation. So we sent out a Google form to our parents, our staff, students, and community to look at climate and culture. We were very fortunate to have 290 who responded. And as you can see, breaking it down, 28% were staff, 15% were parents, 56% were students, and 12 community members responded. So we asked our high school and middle school students to participate. So if you have an elementary kiddo, they probably aren't familiar with the survey because we did only ask our middle and high school students to participate. So the first question on the survey addressed, are voices heard and respected? 51% yes, 41% sometimes, and 8% no. I'm just gonna kind of read through it quickly because I feel bad to just be reading you guys' graphs. I know you had it ahead of time. School system provides climate and culture data reports periodically to all stakeholders, so that's what we're doing tonight. I'm speaking to it publicly. That's why we are going through all of the questions and all of the slides so that information can be out there and accessible. This will be on the website with the survey data, so that's available. Educator teams address positive classroom learning environment. This we had a 71% response rate of yes, so that's good to hear. Only 5.2% were no. Slow me, am I going too fast, too slow?
No,
You
we
guys
just thought
got, okay.
that was good number.
Yeah, that was a really good one. Do we have a teacher evaluation model that aligns with teaching and learning to the district initiatives from our governance plan? So basically, how we're evaluating our teachers and looking for their impact on students. Does that line up with our CSIP? We just got a new teacher evaluation system recently, NE, so we're working through that, and we've got 59% that responded yes. How do you feel when you walk into our school buildings? Overwhelmingly, it was positive. Most people said good or welcome. A few said scared and intimidated, and those are always areas we can work to improve because we want everyone to feel welcome. And I think with our new buildings and signage that I've seen go up recently, it's easier if you're not familiar with the district to know where to go in and to be greeted, other than finding the right door can sometimes be difficult in some of our older buildings. Do you feel safe in our buildings as reasonably as you could reasonably be from intruders? 39% said yes, 27% said no, so we know that that's an area to continue to work on. I know Mr. Rinke and Mr. Pettit are constantly talking about that, and then we have Mr. Woodring, who's also been working on safety and security for us. Do you think the schools should consider armed security? We had 49% say yes, 19% say no. Which building in our district has the greatest need for improvement now that the old elementary buildings are closing? So looking into the future, knowing that Northwest, Benton, and Eastwood will all be closed, which building has the greatest need? So Beaker overwhelmingly had the most, with Marshall High School coming in second. Do you feel that administration and district practices are addressing bullying? We had 38% say yes and 36% say maybe, so that's a great foundation to build on, and I think that that's something that we can work by educating our students more. What is bullying? I know that that's something that Stephanie Vertz works through BIST, what does that actually mean? How can we be preventative before we put our students in situations that things might happen? Do you feel that principals and superintendents are available for calls, emails, and meetings? 71% reported yes. If MPS has staggered start times for bus driver shortages, which school should start first? So this we divided up between elementary and secondary. Elementary had 63% of the vote. So these questions, the next few questions focused on staff. So you'll see that there aren't as many respondents. Which building has the worst parking for staff? Beaker Middle School has the worst parking. And last, staff as an employee, would preschool and all-day program benefit you or your children? So we had 55% of respondents say yes. And if an additional pre-K classroom were added next year with payment requirement of $30 or less, how many children do you know that would be interested? So 67 respondents knew 2 or more, and 48 respondents knew of at least 1 child. So I don't think if we are able to move forward with that, if we would have any trouble filling that classroom. I think we have a great need for childcare in our preschool. I mean, we always have a waiting list here for our 3 and 4-year-olds in the part-day program. So I think the full-day program would be highly sought after. Lastly, we want to thank everyone for their feedback. We can't improve if we don't know where the community's concerns are, where our students' concerns are, staff. So we appreciate the feedback. This is something that we'll continue to do annually and look at where we can be better and grow. Does anyone have questions for me? Yeah.
Off the top of your head, do you know what the attendance was last year, what enrollment was compared to what it is this year?
What it is at this current moment, it is slightly up, I believe. I don't know that I can give you the number off my phone, like I have it in a Google Drive, but I don't know it off the top, the specific number off the top of my head.
Okay, I was just curious as to how it.
I can get that to Mr. Pettit, and I'm sure he can share it with you guys.
Can you drill down into this data as to student responses or staff responses, just to look at some of those different categories?
I think that I can, yes, because
Okay.
one of the first questions we asked on the survey was, what is your role? So I can disaggregate that by the Google sheet that it presented into. Yes, I could.
I was just curious, some of those are kind of staff slanted questions versus community questions, so just making sure our staff feel safe in our buildings, or some of those other things would be interesting to look at in the future besides the overall data. So that's what I was asking, but thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you.
I'd like to say also how proud I am at how overwhelmingly positive our surveys have become. I mean, there's still room for improvement, of course, but compared to what has gone on in the past, they are above and beyond, and I'm proud of that.
That's very true.
Jack,
Any other comments? Mr. Lenz?
I didn't think about this a while ago, and it just occurred to me again. In our paying out our money, we paid $314,000, I think, to the company that's putting the stuff on the windows,
Oh, the film, yes.
and they've been working here and at the high school. And boy, I thought, yes, we're finally getting something there.
So Mr. Lenz is speaking about the safety and security upgrades, the Wyndham films that were able to be added on in this type of weather. I was kind of surprised they were able to do some work in the way it's been here in Missouri currently. And the door projects have to be built, so those will be later. But I was surprised. I actually asked Mr. Pettit a few minutes ago, like, have we started on that? So,
The way she swung that bat at the window, I figured that company could do almost anything.
Yeah.
Last year, we had 2,338.
Say that again, how many?
2,338.
300 and what?
38.
2338.
38.
That was pre-K through 12, if you're looking here.
Thank you, Grace.
Are there any other questions before we move on the agenda or comments? Next, we'll go to Mr.
Tell
Pettit.
Laura you beat her by 20 minutes.
All right, thank you all for, Grace, thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it, and the numbers she put together. And I'm going to recap that in just a moment briefly. But before I do, I want to note that our Board of Education had cards of thank you on your tables tonight. And we have some cake for yourself and the large crowd that's present this evening to eat. So those that are wishing they were here, you're missing out on cake. And I know you all don't love your picture taken, but I appreciate very much that we're able to, with Mona's help, start getting these pictures and recognize what you all do. There's a lot of long days. The pay is $0. It probably costs you money to be a board member, and certainly costs you time. So just thank you all very much for all that you do and have done to be a part of everything, and we really appreciate you. And it's appropriate to butter you up for a very long presentation because we have a lot to discuss before new board business tonight. So thank you, all of you, genuinely. I'm going to start with some bad news first this evening, and I know that that's a little bit small to read, but the long and the short is that really probably just about the same time as we're having this board meeting tonight, communications going out in various formats to parents and staff, but there was a cybersecurity breach with one of the district's vendors. I'm not going to read all that, it's a little small, but I'm going to hit the highlights. That's third-party service is called PowerSchool. And it's actually one of our newer programs that we've recently acquired. I think this is year 2 or 3 with it. And it's where we keep track of student attendance, student data, and we have staff and employee data in there as well. We were notified somewhere on or around January the 7th that they were breached. And what we know right now is that it's not as bad as it could be, although it's always scary when you find out that your information is out there. There's a more in-depth explanation that's going to be available online. If people need to call and this explanation doesn't answer their questions, they can reach out to central office. They can email, but much of what we're sharing right now verbally through various communication forms tonight and posting on the website tonight as well is that it's in a preliminary state. We wish we knew more, but we just know that the reports indicate that our students' Social Security numbers were absolutely not gotten a hold of, in part because when we onboarded this new system, we did not enter student Social Security numbers. So that's a very fortunate thing. Had it been a previous student information system, just because it was probably more thoroughly filled out because it had been around a while, that may or may not have been true. So that's good news. For our staff data, we're not as clear there. We're probably a little more concerned about our staff data. We're not as certain about what for sure was or was not gotten a hold of there. But the big thing that people breach your software systems for is a way to get money. And our student information system is not correlated to the way that people pay their bills. So that is an optimistic thing as well. We hope that if they do come up with anything that's concerning, that they will provide some sort of a LifeLock type system to anybody that might have been negatively impacted. And we will keep communicating through our website and the formats that we did tonight to our staff and to our students' families. That's all I know at this time, but I guess in short, at this moment in time, it seems that we've probably dodged the worst, and we hope that it's going to be all really positive. It's just too early to be certain, so I wanted to get that word out. You all have any questions about that?
No, sir.
Start with the bad news. It can only get better, right? But not yet. I want to talk a little bit about Christmas break, snow days, cold weather, and old buildings. Again, not going to read everything to you, but I know that there's information out there. I want to make sure that what's out there is accurate. So first, I want to talk about Benton Elementary. Benton Elementary has had HVAC issues for some time. I won't give you the long and drawn-out history of that HVAC, but I will tell you that we have spent over $100,000 on it in the last 3 years, trying to keep things working. But we've had a unit that's completely gone down there. That happened before break, but when one unit's down, your supplemental heat starts to concern you and your temperatures are as cold as they've been the last week or two. So when we think about snow days, we've also been thinking about Benton and how warm it will or won't be. We have, for those who might say, why don't you just fix it? Well, $20,000 to $50,000 could fix it, but it isn't certain to fix it. And it's a lot more than that to just replace the unit. And we all know that we're closing that building in a few months. So it's a great example of why old buildings and not having a rigid facilities operations plan can just become an absolute drain on your finances. So we have added a supplemental heat unit. Just today, we got that going. It is quite the apparatus. There's a picture on the next slide of what it looks like. It looks like a spaceship or something, but it's from the outside of the building. It blows heat into the building. We don't love it yet. We've got to keep critiquing it. So we got it hooked up, and we shut it off at the end of the day today because it's stinky. We thought maybe it's just like a new furnace that you turn on, but it's not reassuring us. Now we have sensors for, carbon monoxide, et cetera, et cetera. Those aren't going off. But we're going to have a technician come out and continue to critique the PSI, the how much fuel is getting to it from the natural gas. But when it works, it's going to heat that building really well on these really cold days. It's a few $1,000s a month, and it'll probably make the gas bill go way
Are we
up.
renting it or did we purchase it?
We rented it, and it will go home when this is over, and we'll say goodbye to it and Benton in the spring. So we also have supplemental heaters in the rooms, and I am just thankful for the teachers, the principal, Ms. Maupin, who's a seasoned leader. They're being troopers, and I know it's a pain in their neck too, so I just wanted to share that. BMS, since the start of school, the very first problem was the very first day of school at 7 a.m. We had a leak, and that's related to our HVAC and plumbing that we've invested heavily in over the last 4 or 5 years. And again, this is just old buildings. Welcome to it. People who have and love old homes like my wife and I know what a headache they always are. But we had abated a couple of rooms that had flooded for those leaks at the beginning of the year over Christmas. We had a couple other leaks that were related to plumbing. The maintenance department, I want to thank them for all the snow removal, all the heat, supplemental heat, late nights and Sundays work that they've been doing. And they've also been laying carpet and getting those classrooms going over those snow days. Thank goodness we were in one of those rooms. The maintenance department, were in one of those rooms laying the carpet, and one of those pipes tried to start leaking again. It was shut off. The water supply was killed. We really don't understand where the water is coming from, but now we're capping the lines and shutting it down to absolutely ensure that it won't happen again. But that is just old buildings. And again, for the community who wonders sometimes why Beaker's lacking, prior to me beginning here, but a good move, $500,000 was put into that system that's still causing these issues, and it's because modern systems and century-old buildings aren't just that easy. They have problems. So we're trying. I just want to put that out there. We're trying. It's been an ongoing process. It is not perfect, but we're getting by, and everybody's being troopers, and we'll keep working to make it better. Any questions about that?
I think that's one thing you should have up on the wall tomorrow night.
Yeah. Maybe we'll turn that thing back on if it's still stinky and see if, no, it's a good point. Yeah, as we tour at our open house. I just want to recap very, very briefly, and there's your picture of that apparatus at Benton on the north side of the building. It's like a industrial outside house furnace. Kind of looks like a torpedo heater, but it functions more like a house furnace. 600,000 BTU, when we get it set right, it will really put the heat in there.
We're just hooked into our gas.
It's hooked into the natural gas, yeah. So Mrs. Durham had recapped on the climate and culture survey and talked about attendance trends. Two things I want to say about that is she had also said, part of our comprehensive school improvement plan is that we will recap certain things. And we do so much surveying with our community and staff and our students too. We have become aware that they aren't always sure if we're telling them about our CSIP. So I just want to pause, take a moment, and say this is our CSIP and this is why we're recapping it. And I think if we don't occasionally stop and reflect, we don't know why we're talking about what we're talking about. Similar to that, our attendance trends are part of our CSIP. And looking at the data that was given to our board members tonight, we can see that our numbers are better than they were pre-COVID, a little better than they were last year. So we've been trending upwards. That's great. When you look at the overall, that is true and it's great. When you look at our elementary grade levels, and I say this for our staff particularly, our elementary grade levels, despite those facts, are in fact smaller. The overall increase has been at the high school level. I'm speculating, I'm not certain, but you're surrounded by a lot of K-8 schools that get to the high school level and they have to go somewhere that offers high school. I would assume that impacts it, among other things. But this has implications for what attrition we can utilize. How can we fill open positions with people we have when they come open? As we're moving to the new intermediate school, grades 3, 4, and 5, there's going to be a lot of talk among principals, teachers, and in buildings in the weeks to come. We've now transferred officially tonight. The last group of folks is getting transferred to that new school. That includes nurses and some custodians.
Now that we've got them all officially transferred, we're going to look at with what opens and where it opens through the spring. Do we need to move anybody again? Can we fill a spot with someone we have because it makes sense based on the numbers we have at that level? I think that's worthwhile to just recap. WADA, weighted average daily attendance. First acronym of the night, Quizlater. Last year, we did a lot of movement at the end of the fiscal year in June. We had gone back to prior years and adjusted WADA. We had gone back 2 prior years, at least 2, on transportation, and then made an additional increase to the amount allowable for a transfer. And in all that movement and all that work, we realized right about July 1st, July 2nd, that we didn't do the WADA transfer for 2023. So normally we would be doing this in June, but we decided to wait until our Part B came in, and we had a couple adjustments to make anyway, and that did come in. So we're making that transfer now from Fund 1 to Fund 4, the maximum allowable for, and I'm sorry, that's FY23, not FY24, from Fund 1 to Fund 4. This is the annual maximum, like I just said. The new fund balance, that adjusts that reserve and that fund balance. We now have in Fund 4, 4 funds for the district that we spend our money out of and put it into. We're at $7.1 million in Fund 4. That's money that we can use for capital outlay, for buying heaters, furnaces, fixing leaks, replacing carpet from leaks, et cetera. So we've built that up pretty healthy, but that's also where we make our payments for our Spainhauer project, which pays off in 2030, and for the next 30 years, 29 years, where we'll be making our payments for the new elementary school. When you move to Fund 4, it reduces your reserve because Fund 4 is not reflected in your reserve. So that's an exciting fact, maybe the most exciting thing I've said to keep you with me tonight. No, but so if you remember that our reserve was 32% approximately at the end of the fiscal year, the reason that that's down is not because we're deficit spending, it's because we just moved some money to an area it doesn't count. But it's making us very healthy for any upcoming construction needs that we may have. Hint, hint, and wink, wink, that's going to be a part of this discussion tonight. Our construction project is well beyond 50%. I don't know exact percentage where it is in its completion rate, but it's beyond the halfway mark. But the payments for construction is certainly right around the 50%. Not the same thing, I want to make that clear. We're beyond 50% complete. But we've got some big payments coming, I would say, in the months ahead. And that's going to be part of what we need to talk about a whole lot tonight and a whole lot in February. How much is left to pay on construction? It's under budget, I'm going to tell you. And how much under budget are we certain? And what big payments do we have in the next few years? Because we aren't a bank. Our job isn't to hold on that money and count it and look at it and smile. It's to spend it for our kids and our teachers and our education. But Fund 4 is one-time money. It's money for construction. So I'm setting the stage for what's to come. Now, we're going to pinball through a lot of things. We have some real estate stuff coming up. Correct me if I say this wrong, I'm going off memory. Wednesday night, tomorrow night, the 15th at 5:30, Benton Elementary, I believe is correct. And we'll have a community forum that lasts 1 hour. We are inviting the community to come out and give us feedback, tour the school. And they can also scan QR codes if they cannot make it. This has been in the newspaper. I think it's on our website, and I'm going to set it right there for the large crowd tonight to pass around. And they can go ahead and take surveys and say what they'd like to see happen with those buildings, so that when I come to you in February with recommendations, you know the community's wishes for anybody who's taken the survey or talked to us. The immediate next step that we have to take then is, what are we going to do with them, and will it include selling them? And I think it may well include selling at least something. I'm referencing some board policy. I won't read all of that to you, but I am referencing it because it's important that we follow our policy on what is the appropriate way to sell that property. And so for tonight, in a first reading, not in no motion, in case we want to add more realtors or anything to this discussion, I have complied with the policy, and I have brought you some agents' contract agreements for what they would charge a commission. They've offered details such as, like, they would offer us, they would be willing to be an agent for us at said rate for up to 3 years, I believe is one of them. And those are things that next month, once we decide what we're doing, we have to decide who we're doing it with. And I know it's only February, but we really wouldn't want to wait one more minute or one more month to get moving, because I don't want to have to mow the grass at all those places this summer. That's part of it. I don't want to have to deal with whatever leaks, whatever breaks. And as soon as we are out of them, it seems historically people will break into them and cause us trouble. It would be better to get rid of them as soon as possible. Any questions about all that before we talk more about what we're required to do with surplusing them? Okay. Policy referenced on the left in case anyone in the public or board wants to read into it more deeply. But the surplus properties that we do have or potentially have, and the board will need to advise me on that before tonight concludes, Benton, Eastwood, even though we have made an agreement with the city with Eastwood, we still need to follow the same parameters. And when we make a motion to surplus and do what we do with it, we need to also make it officially so. Again, with Eastwood, we sort of really already have, but I'd rather be redundant and make sure we're compliant than not. Northwest, this house we just bought east of Butterfield recently, we could discuss whether or not we want to surplus that now or later, but at some point in time, I believe we would be able to resell it, put our same deed restrictions on it as it had before, and pass it on to someone else. And then the transportation department, and I put that in parentheses with a big question mark, because we don't have to surplus it tonight. It might very well be premature. It may be something that's not in the budget. That's what we're going to talk about a lot tonight and next month. But potentially in a perfect world, we won't need it anymore. And that will have a lot of efficiencies in how we operate. So that is a whole lot already. Any questions before I jump into another subject? All right, this one's going to wake you up. This is a lot more fun. We're going to play Where Are We in these images. On the left-hand side, the left-hand picture, there's a landmark on the left-hand side of that picture that can tell you where I am. It's all that's left of that landmark is the smokestack itself. The rest of the smokestack building is gone. And on the right-hand side of that picture is the new school, the intermediate school. So that's where we are. Smokestack will come down soon enough. I believe that I'm not kidding. I think they're bringing in a wrecking ball to hit that and knock it down is the way that they're going to approach it. And that'll be pretty neat. Kudos to the city for their completion of that thus far and all that they've done to get that completed for us timely. Now, the direction of that road, that car is sitting on the new road for the new intermediate school because it's going to have its own road that operates just like the street at Spainhauer. The image on the right-hand side, you can see something in dark gray in the center of the page. To the left of that dark gray is where the road is coming down to behind the new intermediate school. And you can see the way the parking lot will take the car rider line behind the new intermediate school. I know that's a little hard to visualize. It's the best that I was capable of. Now, what the dark image is what we're going to talk about tonight, which is the maintenance and shipping and receiving building. I think that we've got this out there a lot, that we've talked about it, but you really never know. But it's getting to the point that we're going to talk about it a whole lot more. That is the proposed parking lot for the shipping receiving building. There are two building structures standing back there that look terrible right now. They're not aesthetically pleasing at all. And we left them standing when we were tearing things down because anytime you have that kind of square footage, walls, roof, building envelope, as the architects call it, there's a lot of savings if you can repurpose it. But it's not going to feel like a lot of savings when we start talking about numbers next. That's how that shipping and receiving building currently looks. That front of that building is facing that parking lot. Okay, the gray blob in the middle of that right-hand picture, that's the front of that building facing where that parking lot would be. So I'm literally standing in where that new parking lot would be that would go with that building. That adds additional parking to the intermediate school. And since the middle school will have its sport events there, we're going to have Spainhauer parking, intermediate school parking, and this parking if this comes to fruition. The survey just said we need more parking, and that ought to address it for the middle school, which is where they said it was the worst. The proposal that we're going to talk about is that what if we did a little addition on the front of that building, and in that addition would be some office space, conference room, et cetera, and I'll tell you in just a moment what would go inside it. But first, a pretty picture. This is what it could look like to make it match the new school. That is it with a new facade, exterior, and that is the new addition that's jutting out. It looks like we're looking at the intermediate school, right? but it was the request of us to the architects that they try to make it match. I want to go back one more time. And it didn't come through like I thought it would, but on the left-hand side of that picture, there's a standing building over there to the left, separate from this shipping and receiving building. That's the maintenance building. It's just a metal building on a concrete slab foundation, so it has a full basement. We want to skin them both out, for lack of a better term, to have the same siding that matches to the intermediate school. And then what would go in here is the next question, right? But first, before we ask what's going to go in there, what would it cost? Because it doesn't matter what goes in there if we can't afford it and it's not responsible. And that's why we're talking about this tonight, is can we afford it and is it responsible? I gave the board members tonight in hard copy and electronically. Mr. Ranke has shared all of this as well. But we asked them to put it into phases. We really want to keep the buildings because it saves us money. We have it in our long-range facility plan. If you see LRFP, that is our long-range facility plan that the board approved in June. It's one of our top 5 priorities, that we'd like those buildings to not look the way that they currently look when we open the new school. But we can get the outside of that shell done. Maybe that's all we can do, but this is the time perhaps to do it. The alternative was to pay money to tear it down or to repurpose it. So a great opportunity before us. But is it responsible? So when we asked our architectural firm to make proposals for you, we asked them to do so in phases. There are 5 phases. I'm only going to talk about 3 of them because I don't like how much it costs. So I'm going to talk about 3 of them, and the reason I'm talking about 3 is I'm looking for, is it in line with our comprehensive school improvement plan? Is it in line with our long-range facility plan? And if it isn't, I'm not going to go into detail about it tonight because that isn't the priority that you all set for the district. The other thing is, these are preliminary numbers. We won't until tomorrow sit down at the table and say, that's kind of like a Cadillac and we're looking for a Prius. We want fuel mileage and efficiency. This is the Cadillac version. And there's things here that, for lack of a better word, are fat, which we could trim. And that's where we need to probably start this conversation, because we can only afford so much and we want to do it responsibly. But remind you now how much is in our Fund 4, which was for capital. It's $7 million. This doesn't cost $7 million. So if that can give you any peace of mind, we'll get to what it costs in just a moment. Phase 1 costs $1.2 million, which is visible there. That is structure and exterior cladding of the addition. In other words, that gets the structure looking good from the outside. Gets it enclosed, dried in, and makes it match. If nothing else were done inside, that's $1.2 million.
Just the one building, or is it even maintenance?
That would do both, and that is somewhere there, or the next one.
Okay.
Questions about phase 1?
Shipping, receiving, existing maintenance.
There we are. Yeah, existing maintenance. Bottom section, top one.
Would it be functional if we just completed phase 1?
If you completed phase 1, it would be functional in this as a surplus building, so we could put furniture and things in it from these buildings that we're closing. It wouldn't have the electricity complete. It would include rough-in, like in other words, the utilities would be inside it, and the addition would be built. So we would have roughed-in everything.
The buses would be parked outside.
It does not at this point, and that's a very good point, we're going to talk about more, it does not at this point include the bus barn itself. We had intended, with immediate regrets already, we had intended for the bus barn to be a separate phase that came later, and now we're wondering if that shouldn't have been in this first phase, and we're going to get into that here in just a moment, actually. That's phase 1. I think it does align well at $1.2 million with our goals. I'll also tell you our surplus on construction, I predict, will be $1.5 million, unspent for what was budgeted for the new school. So phase 1 is within reach, it seems.
What are you thinking? You said this is the Cadillac of the thing. What are you thinking that the Chevy might do?
I think that the whole bundle of this, these all 5 phases, are the Cadillac. I think 3 of the 5 are the Chevy. And then I think that we can put cheaper tires, and we don't need a stereo system, things like that. And I'll try to answer that even better in the next couple of slides.
Not the staff gym.
I'm jumping intentionally to to stage three. Stage 3 is site work, parking lot and drives. So that image I showed you of an additional parking lot, that would be, to me, part of the building envelope, building package, the aesthetics. We need to be ready for kids to come to school, and we need that campus finished. So that cost, and parking lots always amaze me, but I can almost count on it anymore, $852,000 is your earthwork, your concrete, your site concrete, landscaping, and irrigation. Cadillac versus a Chevy, we don't need irrigation. It's there right now, so maybe we can drive this down a little. And the last one would be that I'm going to show you in this depth is Phase 5. Phase 5 is more parking lot and drives. Why does that seem wrong? Oh, I'm looking at two different screens. Sorry, staff gym. Originally, when we talked about this, we had a goal that related to our comprehensive school improvement plan was that it would be amazing for recruitment and retention of staff that we could have a 24/7 access facility. And when we switched insurance companies last year, they gave us money to invest in employee wellness, and we really want to do that. So this is where we parked it. The numbers came back on that at $500,000. It aligns with our CSIP, so I've included it. But I'm not sure that we should have included it. I think that it may now become Cadillac, Chevy discussion. We could find some other place for that employee gym that we already have, perhaps. So these are the ones that.
How much was the insurance thing? I don't remember.
$40,000 in the first year, and that'll
Not enough
fluctuate
make
to
a
some
dent.
extent. Yeah,
Not enough to make a dent in that.
yeah, it would buy the equipment. I believe it would buy the equipment probably because on here they have gymnasium equipment at $30,000. So $40,000 would buy great gym equipment. And to that end, you could take $40,000 off of that, but you're still $400 and some odd thousand. So perhaps it should have been something that was more in line with our long-range facility plan. And we were on the phone with architects today because that idea didn't pop into our brain as soon as it should have.
Have you done any survey with the staff as to what kind of participation you might have in that kind of a thing?
We were talking about that today, and I feel like in our first year of this climate and culture survey we did, which I still have, but that question just came up with Mr. Ranke and myself today, and we didn't go look and see if it was in there. But I'm pretty sure it was. I just need to make sure. I don't want to say it and be wrong. I need to check that. So let's talk about let's break it down a little bit. Phase 1, and I'm rounding numbers, and I always round up unless I'm talking about what I intend to make in revenue, and then I round down. But Phase 1, $1.2 million. It is a high priority on our long-range facility plan. Phase 2, which I didn't show you, would be to outfit the addition. That means put in the cabinets, the desks, the carpet, the paint, the drywall, the electrical finishings, etc. That's $1 million for them to finish it. I didn't put it there because we've got a building traits program, and it would be very well in line. It would take a while, but there's options like that. Bring it in-house. Have our maintenance do some of it to the extent their schedule allows when it's not, pipe burst season. Phase 3, the parking lot. It is a high priority, again, on our long-range facility plan. Phase 4, which I hadn't showed you, that is the current part of that shipping and receiving building that they get it all finished off inside. Paint it, put epoxy floors in it, polish the concrete. I don't think we need polished concrete. It's already there. We'll just sweep it and let's move on. So I kept that out. The staff gym, $508,000. It is a high priority, again, but the total of all of this Cadillac version is $4.4 million. The aligned phases, the parts of it that I can see a correlation to our goals, is 2.5. 2.5, we can start talking about some possibilities there that are responsible. But we have, even with our construction surplus money, that I need to verify and give you absolute assurances on, which I'm going to do in February, we have a $1 million deficit between that price tag and what I'm, at this moment, saying I'm pretty comfortable with. I want to make absolutely certain that we're comfortable in how much we have left at the end of construction. And we need to look about 4 years ahead on Fund 4 expenditures. What are our payments going to be out of that Fund 4? How much of it do we need to keep there? We're not a bank, but we've got bills in the years ahead we got to take into account.
The deficit on the 4.4 or the 2.5?
The 2.5, good question. Yeah, so when the school started getting built, we had contingencies, soft costs, and allowances for all the things that could happen. And we are past the typical point in time in a construction project where surprises happen, like when you're digging in the ground and what you're gonna find. We still have $1.5 million that we did not spend out of those contingencies, soft costs, and allowances. So let's break it down into action steps. A lot of that I already said. I'm going to come to you in February with a lot of hard numbers, a lot of projections, and I'm very thankful for Ms. Durham, who we have in this new position, who's going to pull her hair out over everything I'm about to say. But she'll do a wonderful job helping get this landed. And then we're going to be meeting with our architects, with our construction manager at risk. That starts tomorrow, driving those costs lower. And the conversation will be based on input you all give me tonight. There's also some soft costs that remain. Soft costs are things like a kiln for the art room. Now, it's like $3,000. They're not all super expensive, but we're going to get a total on, and we're going to make assumptions high on what those remaining soft costs are, and we're going to come to you with all of that in February, and I'll probably be sharing it with you a lot sooner and calling you. The other thing we have to consider is all of these schools that we mentioned we're surplusing. Are we selling them or are we tearing them down? Because that's either money in or money out. It's not going to be a lot of money in. It's not going to build that. It's not going to build that bus barn, but it isn't $1 million in tear down costs. So we've got to consider that. Everything else I think I've said, but here's what I didn't say. As I'm going to say it again, I did say it. We need to consider if the bus barn could be done maybe now, because if instead of that gym we had a 2-bay bus barn on that end, that building's big enough to hold 3 40-foot buses end to end twice. It's very big. It's a long building. So what we're considering is keep shipping and receiving on one side, which is currently quite a small building compared to the sort of square footage they're going to have. Maybe we should try to get the architects to build in 2 bus bays right now. That'll be a disappointment. We wanted 4, but we currently have 2, but they won't be as long as this one. It'll actually fit the new buses. I think that would be a strong and good consideration, because then you can surplus the bus barn. You no longer have to have it, you can sell it. I think that's something that we're going to ask them to see if they can do, but they're a little late in the game to be asking, but we didn't think it was going to cost $4.4 million. So questions, that was a whole lot. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. We aren't deciding this tonight. Ideally,
Well, obviously, one's got to be a priority.
some of it's got to be a priority because construction's ahead of schedule and
so
under
does
budget.
3 have to be a priority.
1 and 3 do.
5 is not as big a priority. No.
And even though this is the first time we're talking numbers, this isn't the first time we've talked in project scope as a board, just for those of you all listening at home. So if you feel like it's like a brand-new thing for you, it is probably for you hearing it. It's brand new for us hearing numbers. It's not brand new for us hearing the ideas. So
Unfortunately, 5 is the lowest of the things, so don't say that.
I would agree. And also, unfortunately, while I kind of showed you that, I showed you the savings account for capital projects. We've got to protect that for upcoming payments. What if a roof goes completely bad? What if next year it's one of our remaining schools? What if it's Beaker that the heating system goes down on and it's a $500,000 fix? We need to make sure we have the $500,000. So, yeah, we're going to be responsible here. I think this is where at the end of a project, people are excited and they want to jump at continuing, and I do too, but I don't want to regret those decisions. I don't want to have buyer's remorse. And so, unless you tell me differently, the way I think, I've got numbers and bullets, I'm sorry. I was last minute finishing this, that drives me crazy. But item number 1, and when I'm done saying these, please think about it and tell me if you want to adjust my thinking. I believe it would help set your mind at ease if in February I come back to you with a report on all of our final construction costs and specifics on our surplus construction dollars. Secondly, I believe that I need to present to you Fund 4 projections, probably as much as the next 4 years, because for the next 4 years, we have a payment both on Spainhauer and the new school. After 4 years, we don't have Spainhauer. That drops $1 million off of that obligation. So let's project for 4 years. and make sure that we're thinking about how much will that WADA transfer that just happened tonight be in the upcoming years, and how much will those payments be. I'll present all of that to you. I'm also going to ask Insight Design Studio and Nabholz to come here and present in person on these ideas. And then I'm going to ask you all, number 4, not a bullet point, to decide if we will or will not commit to phase 1, 3, or 5. I do believe we need to decide on at least phase 1 in February, because they are scheduling their construction, and it's either going to be time to load the dozers and go home or take the dozers and start the next project. They are ahead of schedule and under budget, which is a great problem, but unfortunately it doesn't give us the benefit of time. As Mr. Jakes said, though, this has been our long-range facility plan, our discussions since long before June, but June was when we made it official that this was a goal. And lastly, explore an alternative to number 5, which would be, instead of a staff gym, maybe now is the time to add the bays for the bus barn, put them inside that building under that roof, and we don't need to build something later, and we're ready to start talking about surplusing that property.
We'll also know how much we're going to be spending on Benton and Northwest, whether we're talking about tear down or sell off, which is going to affect the amount of free capital we would have as well by that point.
That's
In
exactly right.
in your figuring and planning, how much emphasis you put on the cost savings from trying to keep these old schools going? How much do we gain there as far as expenses are concerned?
That's all going to Beaker now, so.
Mr. Linz's question is excellent, because, you know, when we closed Southeast, and I'm going way back here in my memory banks, but I believe that I made an estimation that it would save us operation costs. I think I said it would be $500,000 in 2 years. And we saved at least $500,000 in the very first year. But to estimate what it costs to run a building a year ahead, it's just, I don't want to estimate and be wrong. So to me, that'll be a savings. And if we don't calculate that savings and we assume, Mr. Linz and I have had a lot of conversations about this, he says, I always project our revenues to be so low, and I do, but you guys keep rehiring me that way. So that's important to me. I would rather not factor in what we might save and really focus in on these sort of items for the February goals to understand that. But there is absolutely going to be significant savings in our operations and in our staffing. And there's been a lot of attrition. Just the attrition in our staffing levels alone have already been well over $1 million also. So yes, I do anticipate more.
My
Good question.
emphasis would be on 1 and 3.
Yes, sir, I agree. 1 and 3 are high priority.
So I have a kind of a suggestion for 5. Can we see what kind of buy-in we get from people that would use the gym and see where we're at there? You know, if everybody says, yeah, it really doesn't matter to me, then but maybe that's a determining factor.
That's absolutely, we can do that.
Agree.
And I am adding what is decided. Next month in February, there will be a recommendation. It is a recommendation, it's the board's decision. I will make a recommendation to you based on community and staff and forum input on those schools. I'll make some recommendations on what you might consider to do with them. And then you'll have to make a decision on, are we tearing them down, or are we selling them, or something in between? And there'll probably be a little bit of all of that, I'm sure. We have 3 buildings to discuss. So that'll certainly play into it as well. Do we need to have $1 million for tearing them all down? Or is there something that's going to make our community happy with us and what we choose to do that doesn't cost that much?
Would it be a possibility to pay for the membership at one of the gyms here in town for staff?
I will tell you for sure whether, if it's possible and affordable or not. I'm not sure with that $40,000 stipend, but it's good for local businesses.
Well, if a membership's
And it-
$35 a month, we could pay for 325 staff for 44 years.
Or give them a
Building
discounted
gym.
membership with a contribution. Absolutely a fair idea. Absolutely. It's a really good idea.
I like that idea, actually.
Huh?
Because that does support local.
Yeah, I mean, that's 11,300 a year,
44 a year.
Yeah.
44 years we pay for their gym membership. So, and they assume the responsibility for the equipment, the maintenance, all that.
And the cleanliness.
I like that idea.
And then we
That
get
is a
the
good
bus
idea.
barn, which we could use hell of a lot more than we can a treadmill.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
staff can use what the facilities anyway, right? Like, they can, they don't go to the gym, they can,
Yes and no.
if they're not being used.
Yeah, that's the thing, is if they're not being used. So I don't think it's widely done, because they don't want to be in there with the football players and, and everything, So, but to some extent, some do, yes. Certainly the track gets used quite a bit, I think. So those are outstanding directions. So if you think of more, February is a little ways away. From the public's perspective, it might seem rushed, but we've been kind of after this for some time. It's just time to land the plane now. And that's why we did all that movement last June, everything we could get into Fund 4, because we didn't know how this construction would end, but we knew we had these partial buildings standing there that we either had to tear down or take advantage of some great square footage.
When's the last time we expanded the high school weight room?
I don't know, but it needs it again.
Well, $40,000, how far would that go? And then you got staff, because that's where I used to
We
work.
can get you the gravel, I'm certain.
I said ceiling.
No, it's not a good idea. But that is, as we meet with the architects and everybody tomorrow, I'm going to find out some answers to a lot of things, like with these phases.
Yeah.
And I think any thinking outside the box you all have, or community input that you hear between now and before the next board packet comes your way, would be amazing. That is my report. Sorry for so much, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, wow. No, not tonight.
Yeah, not
It appears Mr. Pettit has rested his case for the evening, so
They're almost all your
we will go back to some old business and a little chatting for me. So the first thing that we have underneath old business is policy revisions. This is just going to be a second reading. There are 16 different policies in your packet. Please send any comments, thoughts, or changes that you have on those policies in. Candidates that filed for the April 2025 election, for some reason, there was no one who chose to run against Mr. Shepard and Mr. Carroll, so there will not need to be an election in April of 2025, as there are two candidates for two vacant seats. And Mr. Pettit tells me that keeps $10,000 in the bank because of filing and running an election. So everyone must be well pleased or too busy to assume these heavily paid for and sought after roles currently. The next thing is the student service.
I thought we were getting a big pay raise, that's why.
I was going to ask where my W-2 was.
Brad, didn't you think we were getting a big?
Mr. Jakes said it's double your salary, so I'm going to budget it in.
Thank you.
That is where we were going, so. Student Services Director is the next thing. We do need a motion on this. This is a position, a newly created position that will help with 504s, test coordination, help with our counselors. There's also a part of our media or, help me if I'm losing this, marketing plan, website management that is rolled into it. And this is a professional position that will be working completely across the entire district and with all facets of principals and counselors and parents across the district as well. So this will be a large responsibility for somebody to be able to have.
I'll make a motion, we open that position.
I second that.
It's been motioned by Mr. Smith and seconded by Mr. Shepard. Does anyone have any questions about the position before we vote on it, or any other comments?
Call a question.
All those in favor of creating the Student Services Director position as outlined, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next, we'll be looking to approve the bid to move the playground equipment from Butterfield to Spainhauer. I feel like we did that in the consent agenda, but I guess for making sure that we have that correct, we will do that. That bid to move the playground equipment from Butterfield Early Childhood to Spainhauer, I believe was around $40-some thousand. I believe it was $20,000 to remove it, and then $20,000 to recondition it and to have it all up to code.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Carroll and someone over here to my right at the same time. Mr. Shepard?
You can give it to whoever.
Jack and Harry? All right. It's just been recognized by the secretary. All those in favor of moving the playground equipment? Please say aye. Any opposed? Abstaining? And then approve bid to install the playground equipment at Butterfield Early Childhood Campus, and I don't have that number in front of me anymore.
I can look it up.
But I believe it was right at 100,000, if I remember correctly.
It was like 108, 109.
Okay.
So moved.
Second,
And when you see that the contract in your consent agenda was 400,000, that's because it's also including the playground stuff for the new school, which you've already approved separately.
Which would be for the 3 grades.
question?
All those in favor of installing the playground equipment at Butterfield as outlined, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstaining? Thank you. Next, we're going to go down to new business. Mr. Pettit outlined that we needed to, a transfer from fiscal year '23, a water transfer of $1,066,856 from Fund 1 to Fund 2.
I'm sorry, that should be Fund 4.
I was going to say, I thought it was Fund 4 we were moving it to,
Gotta
but
be
I was
4.
reading my notes.
It's 4.
Glad you called me. Because we'd have to move it twice now. Yes, it is 4, sorry.
Four, and
It was 2 in my, packet, but it was 4 on the board and where it needs to be because it's going to go to our capital projects fund, which is Fund 4.
I'm starting.
Fund 2 is our teachers' salary fund.
After
So,
6 years.
We're all like,
That does not mean we are not paying teachers, I'm just saying.
I make a motion, we transfer the funds from Fund 1 to the amended Fund.
Oh, we already had that.
Or the
Second.
Fund 2 and then
All
the
right.
Fund 4. However we have to do it.
Call a question.
It has been moved and seconded to move the transfer of slightly over $1 million from Fund 1 to Fund 4. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstaining? Next, by policy, we need to declare Benton, Eastwood, and Northwest buildings as surplus to the district after this school year.
I gladly make that motion.
Yeah.
everybody else
Second.
It was
Everybody will
unanimous on the motions, so we will see who got those in the minutes when we review those. All those in favor of surplusing the 3 elementary buildings as outlined, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? Thank you. The next one is going to be informational. As Mr. Pettit outlined, the community forum is going to be tomorrow night at Benton and then at Northwest the following night, which would be Thursday, and that will be at 5:30 p.m. both nights and run for an hour. I believe Insight Design will be coming with us as well to give some outlines potentially and also to help collect some of the survey data. And the next thing is a motion to create a crossing guard position at the Northwest campus. And that is just going to be at the new intermediate school area, and I'm assuming that will be on the Lincoln area, and that would be Lincoln and Slater.
Yes, sir.
So
And
move.
That is correct, and that will mean we'll have 2 there next year. I know I keep hearing from the community, I think you all have 2. How are you going to handle that traffic? It's going to take 2 crossing guards, so we're prepping for it now.
Yeah. I move.
Second.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of adding a position for safety, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed or abstaining?
Almost ready for closed.
Next, I will go down to first reading of shipping and receiving and maintenance buildings. That's the information that you had from Mr. Pettit and also that he went over. We will be discussing and getting some greater information. And also a first reading of realtor service contracts, which were also in your packet. We had 2 realtors give percentages that they would charge on sale and some terms that they would do to work with us. If there are any other realtors interested and that would not have a conflict, please feel free to reach out to the central office administration to discuss those items with them. If there is no other information before the board tonight. Oh, there are some cookies, I understand, from the elementary schools for the board as well. So for those of us who are not diabetics yet, we're well on our way. We appreciate all the sweets that you all have presented with us, and hopefully everyone can stay warm and we can continue business as usual.
I move, we move the executive session.
Before we go that far, Mr.
Wait.
Lenz? Yes, sir.
I have a question. We are now halfway through our year. 6
School
months
year?
have gone by, we're halfway through our year. We have not reviewed the budget. Each category should be at approximately 50% of our income and 50% of our expenses.
True.
And I recognize that some may be 2 weeks this side or some 2 weeks that side and so forth. is there a report in our magic new system that would generate something like that for us to review?
You're referencing to see the funds, money in, money out, in comparison one to the other?
I think what he's looking at probably is, you're talking about budget lines and actual, not complete actualization, but expenses versus budgeted,
Yeah,
is what he's talking about.
and income versus budget.
We can print by fund money. Yes, we can do that.
Is there some, I thought maybe there's a magic new program you've got, there might be something.
I think for some of that, like when we move money tonight, when we talk about where we are with our funds, our expenditures and our budgeted, though we haven't looked at it by fund, that's how I viewed some of our financial discussions. One was in October, kind of a quarterly thing, and this being January, I kind of considered another quarterly thing, but it was WADA. I know that's a little unusual, but we can make the next quarterly thing a by fund comparison. Let you see it that way as a board if you'd like. Does that sound like what you mean?
Yeah.
We can do that.
I just
Grace
thought-
knows where to click.
It's important that we look at the budget as we go along. We prepare a budget. If you don't look at it, you might as well not prepare a budget.
Sure.
I have a motion.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, you do, to move to closed session. Is there a second on that?
I second.
It is moved and seconded to go to closed session. Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Wenz? Mrs. Green? Mr. Smith? Aye. Mrs. Staley? Aye. Thank you. We'll be moving to closed session.
Sorry.